history will never be able to talk about Sergeant Carter unless they tell his story. They can't bury it anymore. His story will always be told. And that's why I appreciate so much what you're doing to keep this going.
An excerpt from today's guest, another in a series this month highlighting the Black Medal of Honor recipients of World War II. This time it's Sergeant Edward Carter. Allene Carter, his daughter-in-law, is back for part 2 of her interview, and we'll speak with her right after this break. I'm Robert Child, and this is Point of the Spear. Welcome back. Today's guest is a self-taught researcher and a union activist who has been featured in a number of media outlets, including U.S. News and World Report, The Washington Post, and on the Netflix series Medal of Honor. Her father-in-law was Sergeant Edward Carter, and she single-handedly led a campaign to correct a wrong which had been done to him by the U.S. military. Her book is called Honoring Sgt. Carter, a family's journey to uncover the truth about an American hero. And Allene Carter rejoins us now. Allene, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back.
Absolutely. We focused last time on the frustrations Sergeant Carter went through, but the story ended on a very happy note, the way it should. Let's talk about the White House ceremony.
Okay.
When the medal was bestowed, the Medal of Honor, that was a very emotional time for the family, because what else happened the day after the Medal of Honor ceremony?
Well, the day after the Medal of Honor ceremony, Eddie was reinterred into Arlington. And that was intentional. When I talked to DC, they didn't want Eddie to come to Arlington. They said they would come to California and, redo his headstone. And, I said, that's not sufficient. I said, he died very lonely, only a handful of people at his funeral. And I said, he deserves a hero's burial. My question to you, does he qualify to come to Arlington? She said, yeah, but we're not going to pay for it. We buried him once. We're not going to pay for it. I said, fine. If we pay for it, does he qualify to come? She said, yeah, but we're not encouraging you to do that. I said, but we are encouraged that he should be there. But I had ulterior motives. Anyway, 3 of the guys Eddie served with also contacted me. One was Andrew Nix. He was in the 16th. 12th Armored. Andrew Nix was a director of a funeral home. He was kind of like a regional director. And he told me that he would, we had to destroy Eddie's old casket. He says, I'll get him the best casket there is. Because you have to go funeral home to funeral home. You can't, the funeral homes have to transport him. I mean, we paid for the airfare, but Andrew Nix arranged everything else. He was good friends with the guy at Arlington, the director. And he took care of everything as far as Eddie was concerned, from funeral home to funeral home. So the reason I wanted it the day after the Medal of Honor ceremony is because everybody would still be in Washington, including his family. We wouldn't have to come back for this ceremony. So the next day was perfect. And actually, I met a lot of people. That's when I met Blair. I met Blair at the ceremony. And once these guys found out that Eddie was going to be reinterred at Arlington, well, all of them showed up, so it really worked out fine. But we developed a relationship with Blair that he almost became a family member. And we'll talk about that in a little.
And this is Russell Blair.
Right. His
commanding officer. Commanding
officer, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because he was with you at the White House ceremony, correct?
Yes, that was a big ceremony. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. And the 12th Armored wanted to send as many men as they could, but Blair was there, and when he met us, it was just look on his face in disbelief that this is actually Eddie's family. And he took to us right away. It was just like he was just part of the family, and he wanted to know more about Eddie, and we just embraced him. He went to the reinterment with us, and I saw at that point when he was standing by the casket how he put his hand on there, and I just saw that there was something in his heart that just said he was glad that Eddie finally got that medal. And, I watched him. He followed us from that point on. It was like he didn't want to let go of this time in history. He didn't want to let go of this. And so, that was fine. But one thing I want to say, after reinterment, there was plenty of cameras and people. I really wanted to be alone with Eddie at that time. I was hoping that I could just have a moment alone with him and to say that we made it, but it was so many people around and it was so much going on. And I know that I couldn't come back and have that time because once we left that grounds, that was it. But that was something that I really wanted to do, and so him being reinterred into Arlington, the second part of why I did it, I still hadn't answered the question of what did he do? And I said, well, if it's something bad, they're going to have to dig him up and bring him back. So he's in Arlington, you're going to make a big scene with this. And so that was really a touching time and a touching moment for all of us, for Mildred and his sons. It was really a touching time to be there, to see him be reinterred into Arlington.
But that's not the only time that you had the government do the right thing. After that, you felt like there was still something left undone. Talk about what you did with the Pentagon.
Well, okay, after that, remember, I'm on this quest to get an answer to what he did. I wasn't quite satisfied, but I was also concerned that should something come up that would disgrace his name, something I didn't know about, his wife, nobody knew about, I needed answers to that. I needed to know for sure he did absolutely nothing. And that's when I did the Freedom of Information Act for his FBI files and military intelligence files, the ACLU. Went through all of them with a fine-tooth comb, tracking everything. There was nothing in there, and there was nothing in there that would warrant him being barred from the Army. There was just nothing in there. So once I had researched all of this material, I felt that I was ready to contact the Army Board of Corrections. And I was ready to put my case on the table for them to correct his files. And, honestly, they agreed. And one thing they told me, they said, well, Sergeant Carter, I said, no, he's Sergeant First Class. Well, we don't have that. I said, well, you denied him as a Sergeant First Class. Does the Army make that kind of mistake? And he made rank right before they denied him. So they didn't even have that. And so, but they corrected that too. And so she said, okay, well, we're going to draft a letter of apology for Mrs. Carter. We're going to correct all of his files. And, I said, no, that's not going to do. You destroyed him before the world. You need to apologize before the world. Not just a nice, neat letter, not just to reinter him and let this go away. No, you're going to apologize before the world so his family can hold their heads up for what you did to them. So she had to consult with somebody else, and they agreed because they knew I wasn't going to let up. So they agreed, and they said, okay, well, we're busy, but we'll do it. And I said, now, November, around Veterans Day. Why then? I said, he should be honored as a veteran. He should be honored. Well, okay, we'll do it then. It's like, no. So they gave us the invitation to the Pentagon. Now, one thing that was important to me, when Mildred and her son set up on stage and General King was wringing his hands, struggling to come up with the right words, I sat in the audience. I felt that this was their time, this was their day, and they should be honored at this time. I don't need to be, I did speak later, but I don't need to be on the stage. And if you could have seen the look on Mildred's face, Mildred's eyes, when you mentioned Eddie, her whole face lighted up. There was just this glitter in her eyes. And William, I was getting annoyed with him because he was acting like he was 5 years old on stage and he was laughing. And I said, William looks serious. But he was just laughing and tapping his hands like he was at a parade. And I said, why leave him alone? This is their time. So that was the Pentagon's situation, and it was huge. It was in all the newspapers, and we went back to Arlington, and the press came and they took pictures of Mildred, and Levy was there with us, Blair was there with us, everywhere we went.
I hope you're enjoying this episode. Next time, we've got a narrative special, Weather and Warfare.
Since ancient times, weather has played a critical role in the rise and fall of empires. Every battlefield commander from millennia to modern time has had to contend with the most powerful and unpredictable force on the face of the earth, nature.
That's next time. February is Black History Month, and my new book, Immortal Valor, about the Black Medal of Honor recipients of World War II, is out now. The book chronicles these immortal heroes' life journeys through all the pain and struggle up until their ultimate triumphs. I hope you check out the book to discover more as we celebrate Black History Month. Just visit my website at robchild.net or visit any online retailer. Now back to the conversation.
One thing we haven't touched on is the ship.
Right, absolutely. Let's talk about the ship.
Well, I was asked that, Miss Carter, are you satisfied? We gave Eddie the medal, and we apologize. And I said, it's not that you did anything above and beyond. He was entitled to that medal, and he was entitled to your apology. I said, it's not like I should be satisfied for something you took 50 years to do. But I submitted a notebook for a ship. And I wrote in there why, I thought he should. Well, they had a ship, but it went to Bob Hope. The young lady I gave the notebook to told me when the plane hit the Pentagon, she grabbed that notebook and ran out. She didn't leave it behind. And she later submitted it, and they later notified us that they had a ship ready. Now, this is where I was grateful. I was grateful for the ship. It was above and beyond, but I was grateful that my children got to see history up close. They didn't have to read about it. They toured the ship with me, and they were just in awe. So the legacy, when my children saw that ship, especially my son, he said, "Do you see how big that is? His name is on there." And that changed me because I took them everywhere I went. But that ship to me was vindication. That's when I said, yes, okay, we're even now.
And this is not any ship, it's an ammunition ship.
Ammunition ship, and it's stationed in Diego Garcia. It pulls up alongside destroyers, and it loads them up with ammo. They give them a shopping list, and they put the ammo on the ship. But it did catch on fire. That was another thing.
Yeah, it's shortly after it was christened, right?
Shortly after it was christened, it went down to Sunny Point. And actually, I prayed while we were on that ship. We all gathered around and I prayed. And so I'm watching the news, and I see Carter on the news saying his ship's all on fire. And I'm going, what did you say? I'm talking to the TV. What did you say? The ship's on fire? And my brother-in-law called. And he said, the ship's on fire. He said, why did that happen? You prayed over it. I said, well, you can look at it two ways. It could have blown up, and it didn't. It was half loaded with ammunition, so I don't feel too bad. 2 men died. I feel bad about that. Yeah. But it could have blown up, and it didn't. So, that was, but they restored it. It's back out there now, and everything is great.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And you were at the christening, right?
Oh yeah. I was embarrassed at the christening, but I was there. You know how you're supposed to hit that bottle and it breaks and everybody's cheering? Yeah. I hit that bottle and it bounced off. It didn't break. I hit it again. Then I took it like a batting swing and I batted it as hard as I could, and it didn't break. And I said, now this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. I don't know how else to break this bottle.
It happens more often than you would think, actually.
Really? But it's embarrassing when you got all these people and cameras rolling and the bottle just sitting there, wouldn't break. Oh. Yeah, I christened it in Norfolk, and my family was there, and so was Russell Blair, so was Levy. I told you he went everywhere. One thing I didn't mention about Blair, he asked me to bring the medal to Texas, to down to Abilene for their reunion. He asked me could I bring it down there. He wanted to show it to the 12th Armored. And I told my husband, I said, this is important to him, and perhaps we should go down there. And so we went down there, set up a table. Russell Blair was there. We let him have his show. He was holding the medal and holding Eddie's picture, and he was just in seventh heaven. And I said, it's worth it to see him like that. He deserved to have this moment.
He had so much respect for Sergeant Carter, and he was the one who actually wrote his citation for the Distinguished Service Cross, correct?
Yes, he wrote a citation, and he said he knew Eddie wouldn't get the Medal of Honor. No blacks had ever gotten it, but he wrote his citation, and in his file, Blair wrote a longer citation than what actually got through. But I was able to read everything he wrote, and so yeah, he wrote the citation. And you know who else? I got to speak to Vanderhoff.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, he was up in age, and he wasn't at the reunion, but I did manage to speak to him on the phone.
This is Floyd Vanderhoff, his first.
Floyd Vanderhoff, yeah.
Right.
I'm not quite sure how he and Blair shared that responsibility of being in charge of that unit. I don't know if Vanderhoff was there first and Blair took over.
From my research, Vanderhoff was his first commander, and then when Eddie came back from his wounds after his Medal of Honor action, Blair was in command. So Vanderhoff had moved up in rank or transferred.
Okay. Well, I didn't have an opportunity to speak to him.
Yeah.
And so that was nice too.
I'm sure it was great to interact with both of them so much. What would you like to leave people with about Sergeant Carter?
What people don't know about Sergeant Carter, I often get asked, if you didn't know him, how were you able to do this, or how were you able to know what he was like? And I said, he left his story to be told in over 100 letters. He left his story, but he was telling his story to Mildred. His highs, his lows, his pain. He was explaining to Mildred what he was going through. And so I had to read those letters to be able to establish where he was. It was important to me to reclaim his legacy. It was important to me to let his sons know that he was what he said he was. He was not a failure. He was what he said he was. And for Mildred, it was very important because his sun rose and set on Eddie. And for her to know that he was a hero, that was important. But the second thing is that it was important for my children because this was their legacy too. It was important for them to know that history will never be able to talk about Sergeant Carter unless they tell his story. They can't bury it anymore. His story will always be told. And that's why I appreciate so much what you're doing to keep this going. But when you go on the internet, you will see Sergeant Carter all over the internet.
Right.
It's well known. And so that is what I'm grateful for, but it's also a labor of love. There's a passion that goes with what you do. And the passion is, in spite of all the people saying you're foolish, you'll never beat the Army. You will never win this. It's like fighting City Hall. You're never going to win this. But I just felt in my soul that I could win it. And that for Eddie, I would win it. And so that's the reason why. And I have no regrets, and I would take it on again, but I'm too old.
Well, you did win it. You absolutely did win it. With the ship, that is the crowning glory.
My crowning glory. That is my ship, my crowning glory. When I christened that ship, it was everything to me. This is above and beyond. You know, for a Black soldier to be destroyed and now his name is on a ship is phenomenal. It is just phenomenal.
The book is called Honoring Sgt. Carter, A Family's Journey to Uncover the Truth About an American Hero. Allene, thank you so much for joining us. This has been wonderful.
And thank you for having me on.
That's it for this episode. Thanks again for joining me. My conversation with Allene is part of a series of shows this month focused on the 7 Black Medal of Honor recipients of World War II in my book, Immortal Valor, which is out now. Next time, we've got a narrative special, Weather and Warfare.
Since ancient times, weather has played a critical role in the rise and fall of empires. Every battlefield commander from millennia to modern time has had to contend with the most powerful and unpredictable force on the face of the earth, nature.
That's next time. And if you like what you hear, leave a review or a rating or just click the follow button. You can find me on Twitter @RobChild, where you can share your comments about the show. I'm Robert Child, and this has been Point of the Spear.
Music licensed from audioblocks.com. Point of the Spear is produced by RSC Media Group.